Hey guys, Kinggath here, and welcome to another episode of the Kinggath podcast. Today's guest is what I would say is the best Fallout 4 weapon and armor artist that we have available to us today. His stuff is just always mind-blowing. It puts to shame a lot of the stuff in the base game. Welcome, Niero.
Hey, what's up? Thanks for all that.
Man. Yeah, you deserve the hype. Your stuff is so damn good. And excuse me, I before we did this, I was like, I've never heard his name before, and I've been playing, like, I played so many Skyrim mods, it's ridiculous. And so, like, I was looking you up for Skyrim, like, nope, no dice, except for you put out one of your weapons from the melee pack from Fallout 4.
Not too long ago.
The Crucible one. My God, is that thing beautiful.
Yeah, that one was fun.
So perfect for Skyrim.
But yeah, most of my Elder Scrolls stuff, I modded Skyrim for a very long time. Very long time. I still play Skyrim every now and again. I have a playthrough going right now. But I never released any of it. It's almost all small Xedit, if that name, if people know what that is. I'm never sure if people know what Xedit is. But
Tez edit, FO4 edit, X edit, it's all the same.
It's all the same thing. It's got a lot of different names. It's all the same program. It's all very well made by the guys that put it together. And those guys deserve. If you are not, everybody out there, if you are not contributing, go support
Patreon
them.
Money to those guys, go do it, because they're indirectly responsible for like every mod.
Yeah, we'd all have to be using the CK if it wasn't for them. And good lord, nobody wants to. Anyone who's ever found Xedit knows that they don't ever want to touch the CK ever again. I know I don't. I dread having to go in that.
I still use the CK a ton. Like, really? I love Xedit, and I will never get rid of it out of my toolkit for automation. But yeah, certain screens, I'm just such a visual guy. Like, I'm a web developer, so I'm just so used to having nice little boxes to work with.
I can understand,
but
it
isn't a
quests and stuff and like dialogue. I don't actually. I've never done a dialogue mod, so I don't have any room to talk there. But I'd imagine it's really good for that. I've seen the CK's dialogue thing, and I opened it up and I immediately closed it because I was terrified of it. But
it's a little intimidating. There's a lot of stuff in there, but there's certain things I find way easier to do in the CK, like script properties. I find to be a pain in Xedit. They're a breeze in.
You're right.
CK,
yeah, now that I think about it, well, you have to compile everything in the CK anyway, so yeah, I do. I guess.
Right. So it's like, it's already going to be open, so might as well go ahead and fill in the properties and whatnot. Or I could do what some people like. I know I'm going to butcher this pronunciation. Deuster does this for all of his scripts for Amazing Follower Tweaks. Is he just hard codes the form IDs right into his scripts? So I don't think he ever wants to launch the CK. It's just like, I'll just compile my scripts with the forms already in them.
You're giving me ideas. I don't know. I try to be a good developer and like actually make my stuff forward compatible on the very slim hope that somebody will actually open up my scripts and use them. Which I've gotten a few messages about that, but they're few.
Do you put your source in the mods?
I didn't used to, but I do on all my recent mods, and it's one of those where it's like I've never had a problem with people looking at my source or giving it away. It's just it was never very clean, and I didn't want people to see it.
That's how I feel too.
Like I felt
if anyone looked at the code to Sim Settlements, they're like, they'd be like, oh my God, we're relying our saves on duct tape and glue. This is horrible.
Yeah.
So I try and keep my code on the DL, and I started doing the same thing you did, though. Is recently I've been making an effort to clean it up and make sure it's open source so that people can I'm hoping people will either tell me where I'm screwing up and tell me how I can improve, or they will make use of it and improve their mods.
I've never gotten a script correction message. There's not very many scripters out there, that's for sure. I wouldn't consider myself a scripter either. I'm not very good at it. I make it work, but that's about it. I
actually now that I know you open source them, because I once in a while, if I have no idea how somebody did something, I will decompile their
there's
scripts
a decompiler
and
out there. It's not very
and it works.
It works
decently.
But
it works well enough. Yeah, you definitely have to have some scripting knowledge to know where it's being dumb.
Yeah, it's hard to read on decompiled scripts, but they do work, and I've used the thing before. I think I used that like the jetpack mod I did. I used the decompiler for some old Skyrim mod, and that was how I figured out how to do that mod. But
the jetpack is so awesome. That's one of the ones I get recommended the most in my playthrough. Like, come on, Gath, you're jumping around with jet. Just add a jetpack to it.
I'm not sure how much I would have. Like, I kind of love and hate that mod. That's one of those mods where it's like, okay, this is one of those things where only modders are gonna get this. Only people that have opened up the Xedit or the CK are gonna get this. But like, the mod legendary modding was that what it's called? Legendary modification. It's the mod that lets you put legendary mods on anything, right?
Yeah.
That mod is.
I'm not sure what it's called either, but I know what you're talking about.
It's got like 80 million endorsements on the Nexus, and it was a very early mod. And it don't get me wrong, it deserves it. But when you look at what that mod is, there's really nothing to it. You just added a few keywords to a thing, and I'm not, like I said, I'm not disparaging the guy that made it. It's just what it is. The jetpack is just like that, and I've always kind of hated that it's like that. Like it really isn't that complex.
Okay.
It's some animations switched around, and I mean it still breaks the original PA, and there's no way to fix that because a lot of the PA stuff is power armor. I'm already abbreviating. I shouldn't be doing that.
I think anybody watching my podcast gets it.
Okay.
I'm all about that Fallout 4. That's where everybody knows me. So.
Yeah. But it's still that mod still breaks the original power armor, and so it still drives me nuts that people love that mod as much as they do. But it's still one of those. It works. I can't complain. It's just one of those where it's like, I hate that people know me for that one when I've put out so much better stuff.
Oh yeah, you're and you can see like the pattern of if I were to go over your mods and they were just scattered in order, I think I could pick out which ones you did first. Not only but complexity, but I can see you experimenting with different features and stuff in the CK, which is kind of cool to see. Like you can clearly watch your rise to where you've learned more and more and just keep getting better and better at what you're doing. Like with your latest weapon, the Archimedes. I think the Archimedes, was that your last one?
No, what is it? I keep wanting to call it the DB507, but that's not it. It's the Children of Adam one. Chosen of Adam. That's
I forgot. I haven't loaded that one yet, so I didn't know that had a weapon in it. I thought that was just an armor set.
Yeah. No, it is. The Chosen of Adam was the armor set that I just put out a few weeks ago, and then the Archimedes was before that. And
right. Just the quality of these just keeps getting better and better. And you can see you're doing more stuff with scripting and special effects.
When I started, I was really just repurposing assets that Bethesda had made, and I've never had a problem with that. That was what most of my Skyrim mods were, is just repurposed assets. That's what most Skyrim's mods still are, because I mean the asset, you can't really complain. Like the assets for Fallout 4 are pretty amazing. I mean they're they're a little dirty for my likes. I generally make my stuff cleaner, and then I don't add nearly as much dirt as Bethesda does, but they're like I said, like everything starts from there. I had never opened ZBrush before I started modding Fallout 4, so I don't know.
Really? Yeah. See, I was taking bets with people that you were going to come on here and be like, I'm secretly a Bethesda employee.
No, God, no. Yeah, you got to talk
because
to
like your stuff is that quality.
Have you had him on here?
Who was that?
Trainwiz.
No, I have not had Trainwiz on, but I'm on a tear, just inviting people like crazy because I want to get everybody on here. I want to talk to everybody. Like I haven't. It's so hard. I mean, there's so few of us when you think about it. People who have committed to this much
sad,
modding.
Actually.
Well, I mean, I'm not even just Fallout 4, but I'm just saying, I wish there were more too. But I'm saying, like, I bet no one IRL who is also a big modder. At least maybe you've met some other modders in your life, but I'm sure.
Anymore. I'm sure if I was still in high school doing this stuff, I'd have a whole group of friends doing it. But that kind of mentality only exists in high school. Yeah,
fair. I see a lot of people in college doing it still too, but I would say most of the modders who have kind of committed to it, it seem to be people who are adults and have everything everything all sorted out. It's a hobby, yeah. It's a fun hobby too. It's basically for me, it's replaced most of my video game playtime. Like now I'm doing. Yeah, now I get to feel productive.
That's definitely how it was when I first got into it. Like. I don't want to say Fallout 4 is not a good game. It is a good game, but I certainly enjoy modding it more than I do playing it.
Oh yeah, for sure. And the game was great for a playthrough, but it doesn't have nearly the replayability of something like Skyrim.
There's something about it doesn't have a good. I'm sure it has an alternate start mod at this point, but when I first played it,
definitely.
This is me ragging on Fallout 4. I absolutely hate Fallout 4's story. I hate being railroaded to be like a lawyer or a soldier. Or whatever the male-female thing is you have to start. It's so stupid. And then you're chasing around a kid for half the game, and you can't get away from it because you're your character is so soft, but your character sounds like such a nice guy, and you can't be a jerk, and the jokes are all terrible. Ugh. I'm very much against
I have been
voice
wondering why someone hasn't revoiced the protagonist. That seems like that could be a fun mod.
Because there's 80 million lines they'd have to revoice.
You look at the depth of some of these mods, and that still doesn't make it seem impossible. Yeah. Or you look at some of these mods that are getting built for Fallout or Skyrim or any of these games where they're doing, like, there's people remaking all of New Vegas. So, redoing a couple thousand player lines.
Oh my god!
Yeah, they're doing full dialogue replacement. See, like, that's going to be.
I would go
unbelievable.
I would go in the exact opposite direction. I would go back to Morrowind, and just do big, huge dialogue boxes, and just have characters talk about whatever the hell they were doing, and just let a writer sit down and just write and just do that kind of thing. I loved Morrowind for that kind of thing, because it's there if you care about it, and you can. Yeah. There's tons of story and tons of depth. And Oblivion came along, and that kind of all went away. It's just putty-faced dark elf that turned himself invisible or something like that. I'm trying to remember the quest from Oblivion, and I can't remember it. I think it was a high elf that turned himself invisible.
Oblivion's one I have never given a fair shot. So it came out during World of Warcraft's heyday for me. So I was so addicted.
Both, so.
I tried. I remember picking up Oblivion day one, thinking like, oh yes, it's been so long since Morrowind, like I can't wait to get into another one. I put in maybe 10 hours, and I was like, nope, back to raiding. Got to get in there.
I think I was like, okay, my philosophy on like gaming is like I go really hard on one thing. So I definitely rode the Warcraft train really hard.
Yeah.
And class, I rode every expansion up to. I don't even remember. I remember Icecrown Citadel best, but more than anything. But I rode it really hard up to that point, and I kind of gave up on it. But I'm kind of the same way.
That's about when I quit as well. I tried to poke my head back in during the Panda one, and I actually had a blast with it. I know a lot of people like hated that one, but I came in after the content was all out, so I got to go from play through all of the raids right away without having to wait for anything. So it was a blast to me. But then I was like, I can't see myself getting into that raiding loop again. That's too much time.
It's a brutal loop, man. What was it? I think we raided twice a week, and it was just like you realize you're tied into that time slot twice a week for that same time. It's usually like around just after dinner time or whatever it is for you, and it's just one of those things. Like when you finally get out of it, you realize how great it is to be out of it. I remember
it's like, it feels like quitting a job. It
does. It feels liberating in a weird way. It's like, I can spend that time doing productive things. This is great. I don't know. It's productive in a different way. You don't.
Right.
You build MMOs are like you build social. What do you want to call it? Social memories. Whereas like a game like Oblivion or whatever. Or any of the Elder Scrolls or whatever, you build like sort of your own personal memories, and that's like, I don't know, it's debatable which one is more productive, I guess, but that's the way
right.
That's why I go so hard at
I think
I don't want to dilute either one of those. I either want to have that hardcore social experience, or I want to have that hardcore story experience where I am the Dragonborn or whatever. Actually, funny thing about don't worry about that.
No, I go back and forth between them. Like I'll get hooked on a multiplayer game, get burned out from it, and then I got to go to a single player. And it's always between Bethesda games and something else. But between Skyrim and Fallout 4 for me was Destiny. Got way into Destiny.
I was Overwatch for a while. I did pretty well in Overwatch though. I don't know. Overwatch was one of those where it's like I still want to like Overwatch, but God, they do not know how to balance that game at all. It's just one of those. The patches just keep coming. It seems
like an impossible task to try and do. Well, I would not want to be in charge of that.
I think their problem is that they're so. This is like me from thinking about it from a developer side. The art assets for that game are absolutely insane. Like the amount of effort it takes for them to make a new character in Overwatch is maddening. Like they have to make like 16 skins or something like that. They have to make the model itself. They have to do tons of voice work. They have to re-record all the voice work for all the other characters. They have to build the character in the game and make it work. And they have to make it bug-free, which is, oh, God. I don't even want to think about that. But it's just like the big problem with Overwatch is like they committed to that so hard versus like a game like Dota or League of Legends where like look at a Dota hero or a League of Legends hero. You know, it's a low poly model that you're seeing from a mile away, and it's got a few voice
Right.
lines, not a ton. Like development wise, I think Overwatch was doomed from the start because they were never gonna have like 100 character roster that was gonna make the game balanced. They're always gonna be stuck in
Sure.
this like 20-man roster, and it's just from a development, like I said, from a development standpoint, I don't know how that game can ever be balanced, but they didn't balance it in the way I liked it, so I stopped playing it.
I mean, I think any of those, especially in a game like that where they're planning on being at an online service, it's going to keep going on for a long, long time. I don't think they ever intend on it actually becoming fully balanced. I think they just shift who the most powerful are. It's kind of like the TCGs and stuff. Like you're never going to have a balance between all the Hearthstone decks or Magic the Gathering, same thing. So I think they figure it's kind of a rolling metagame balance. That's just the life they're going to live.
Yeah, well, that's well, I guess that's why I quit, because I quit because the character I liked stopped being decent. So I'm one of those guys.
I'm so bad at multiplayer shooters that I never bothered to try and get good at Overwatch. I just played a handful of rounds with my buddies, and I was like, nah, this game's not for me.
Yeah,
it looks beautiful though.
Yep,
such a pretty game. Do you find that game inspires any of your own artwork?
No, but I like
very
the robots.
Cartoony and very stylized.
I like the robots.
It's also very impressive.
Yeah.
You like the robots?
Yeah, the way like well, I call them robots, but like Reinhardt, the big tank guy.
Sure.
I love that big armor. It's the big shoulder style. I guess that's just Blizzard style, isn't it?
That's Blizzard.
I'm really
looking
forward
their
to what is it, Warcraft 3 Reforged? Because like
yes,
they're doing such a cool thing with the art in that game. Like, okay, so the original Warcraft 3 comes out, right, and they have this amazing Blizzard cinematic, and then the game itself looks nothing like the cinematic. But they're making the reforged Warcraft 3 rebuild or remaster, whatever you want to call it, and they're matching the original cinematic style, which is so fucking cool. Like,
that is very
that's
cool.
so awesome that they would even do something like that, because I mean, you know, you can't deny Warcraft has a certain style to it. I mean, they took the Warcraft 3 style and made it into an MMO, and they're just they're brave enough to throw that all away and try this thing with the cinematic style, and I think that's really cool. I'm looking forward to that. Plus, I just like Warcraft 3, so.
Yeah, it's really dated in the graphics now, so it was a big surprise.
It's still watchable. I still watch Warcraft 3 on Back to Warcraft's Twitch channel. I still enjoy it. It's fun.
Yeah, I put a lot of hours into that, but I haven't watched any of it on Twitch recently. I should go poke my head in there. It's fun to watch some of those older games because it's hard to get the same. Like the nostalgia can only take me so far in those older games, but there's a chance on Twitch to watch a lot of people who have never experienced these try out these games for the first time, so you can get a little vicarious thrill out of it.
Yeah. I like the I don't know. It's I've always been a fan of RTS games, and I guess it's just Blizzard RTS games. I guess I can't really say I'm a fan of other. There's no other competitive RTS games, but I just like competitive RTS games. I like watching them especially.
Yeah, I've been having a lot of fun watching the We Are Billions, which I know it's not a traditional RTS. It's kind of it's like a PvE version of it. I haven't played it either. Just watching people play it, I'm like, okay, this is really cool. It's kind of a I want to say steampunk style versus zombies essentially.
Yeah. It's like steampunk. That's exactly it.
Right, and that's really cool to see an evolvement in the genre, because really there's not a lot of RTS going on.
Now that I think about it, you're right. It's a pretty dead genre. There's not many
I don't know why.
willing to. Well, I think it's because they all know Blizzard sort of corners the market, and they're never going to break into it. Plus, it's like, I mean, shit, StarCraft 2 is on life support at this point, and that's a totally modern RTS game, and like it doesn't get very much viewership on Twitch. I know that much because I still watch it. Yeah, I'm sure it's still big in Korea.
Hey, maybe it's just lack of interest right now, but I would imagine that's one of those things that'll come back it'll become vogue again. Like it's just a matter of people are focused on the battle royales and the team deathmatch type games like the Overwatch and Apex now. So maybe it'll just be strategy. It'll just get popular again. But it's probably also because it's one of the harder genres to play even decently. I remember how nasty it is to try and ladder StarCraft 2. Even when it first came out, I remember just getting my butt kicked over and over and over again.
Yeah, I was never good at it either. StarCraft's definitely a more fun to watch. I think that's one of the other reasons that no developers ever want to get into it. Is StarCraft is it's a better experience to watch it than it is to play it, and you don't have to pay anything to watch it.
That's true. Yeah, that's got to have a big impact on the games industry. I remember watching an episode of South Park where God, I can't remember the name of the characters. The Canadian kid's brother. His head was like Ike. That's the one.
Yeah.
Was just watching Twitch, and they're all like, "What is he doing? What do you mean he's just watching video games?" And I felt the same way. Like, wait, that's a thing. Because usually once it makes it to South Park, it's such a prevalent thing that everybody knows about it already. I was out of the loop because I didn't catch on to Twitch very quickly. And now I get the appeal now, especially because I don't have as much time to game. So it's a fun thing to have on in the background when I'm busy doing other stuff. But it's got to be a little bit market warping.
It's absolutely.
There's a generation that would rather watch than play.
Yeah, one of the what was it? The EA, like, this is in the news, like either today or yesterday or something. EA just fired a whole bunch of marketing people because it's like they just released Apex, and Apex is literally like it's not the biggest game ever, but it's like Fortnite. It's a huge battle royale game. And like, how did Apex get popular? You know, there was no marketing for Apex. They just paid a bunch of Twitch streamers to play it, and it worked.
Right, and that's probably way cheaper than paying network television and stuff. Yeah,
a marketing guy that went to college for that nonsense.
Right.
You know,
from what I understand is most of the AAA games were spending about the same amount on development or on marketing as they were on development.
Oh, I'm sure.
So they might, if they had like a $400 million budget for a game, it would be $200 million for dev work and assets and everything, and then $200 million just to market it.
Yeah, like, imagine what $2 million
when you could just pay 5 streamers $1 million each, and they'll take it to the top.
Ninja or something that plays Fortnite?
Yeah,
billions of dollars.
Right.
Like, just how much is his time really going to cost you? Like, really, think about it.
Right.
You could give that guy $100,000, which is less than you're going to give, which is less than you're going to give an actual guy working for you. You give Ninja $100,000 just to play your game for a couple hours, and that's better marketing than some guy in a tie is ever going to give you.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty wild. It's a pretty big shakeup. But I think there's also, I've seen talks at dev conferences about how now some of these game developers are trying to bring Twitch into it, almost like come up with interactive experiences where the viewers and players can
I'm trying to think
play together almost. Which
I never participate in that stuff, but I know they do it.
Yeah, but I think it's going to just continue they're going to start developing in that direction now. So try and come up with games. So they're already working. Obviously, they're like Apex is a great example of it, where they're trying to make it more watchable with all the animations and stuff. And I think Overwatch was in the some boat.
Are they?
It's just fun to watch. There's like so much going on.
I haven't
played it either, but I've watched a bunch of it just because out of curiosity, because it's so weird that this game launched on a day and then instantly like the number one game all over Twitch. It's like, that's bizarre.
Fortnite was on top for ages. Yeah, actually, that's funny you bring that up. I was always thinking about that. Apex has terrible animations, or at least it did when it originally launched. I haven't watched it in a while, but that was the first thing I noticed about it. Is the animations were god awful. Like the guy climbing over a wall or something would just like sort of teleport up and over, and I just thought that how is this acceptable? And Overwatch kind of does the same thing. It's like, you know, I've heard people say Apex is a terrible spectator game, and I think they're right. But you want to talk about a terrible spectator game? Holy shit! Overwatch is the most unwatchable game in the history of video games.
See, I think it depends on what you're looking for in spectating, because I find those to be like both of those games to be great visual spectacles.
I don't know. I played Overwatch up to top 500, and I cannot sit there and watch the Overwatch League because I can't tell what the hell is going on. Like, what is
maybe that's the difference is I don't know what's going on anyway, so to me it's all nonsense.
Yeah. I mean, I don't
play either of the games.
I played StarCraft up to like maybe Diamond or something, and that was a long time ago. So Diamond probably is like bronze today, but like
sure.
Like, I can understand what's going on in StarCraft. I cannot understand at all what's going on in a professional Overwatch game. I just feel bad for Blizzard for just making this. They're putting so much money into the Overwatch League. And then a guy like Ninja just pulls the same viewership, you know, every day. And just you got to figure they're putting so much into this, and it's not fixing the fact that it's a terrible to watch game, where it's very difficult to know what's going on. You have to be listening to what the guys are saying on the commentators, because that's the only way you can really know what's going on. And I hate that about it.
With all the I think that's one of the beauties of the battle royale system is it's very clear to see what's happening. You're slowly moving to the center of the map to kill everyone. It's obvious
they have
objective.
Such great tools for that too, because you know the helicopter view is such a good tool in a battle royale, because you can you see multiple teams squaring off with each other, and none of that translates in
Yeah.
Overwatch. It's really just too bad. But yeah, that's
I
no
think,
doubt.
and I
That's
wonder
why.
if it's because of the fact that it's like a back and forth game, so people keep respawning, and
Yeah,
that
yeah.
kind of complicates things. It's hard to tell who's actually winning, whereas in a game battle royale, it's like he's alive, or his team's
Yeah,
alive,
it's
he's
easy
winning.
to,
It's fine.
there's no coming back. I guess there is coming back in Apex now, but yeah, yeah, it's
Yeah,
just it is the battle royale is so much of a better spectator sport than
especially at the event level, because like you said, they've got the helicopter cam and stuff, so they can go scout between things. I always find it a little boring to watch an individual play, like streamers do the battle royale, because it's half the time they're just they're healing up and collecting items and hiding. Like, it's funny, the best streamers always, and it's smart, but they tend to do more hiding than actually fighting, so they're waiting for the opportunities to snipe.
That's how you get the wins.
Right. So I find that to be a little boring, but the championships and stuff are always crazy. There's just so much action going on nonstop because they're basically just finding the action for you.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for that Fallout 76 Royale. You know that's coming, right? I'm surprised it hasn't.
Absolutely. Well, I think it depends if they have enough players, because who know? I don't know how well the game did and how big the player base is maintained, because a lot of us, I was definitely one of them, where I went in hopeful, and then I went in hopeful but skeptical, was let down, pulled out, and I can't think of anything they're going to do to pull me back in. So like the only thing that I was a little excited about the idea of hardcore like PvP mode, because I would rather, if I'm going to play a survival game, I want to feel scared, but that game doesn't do it for you right now. So maybe I'll pop in with survival mode, but I still don't know. I think it had its one chance, where everyone cared, and because it wasn't a great experience right then, that a lot of people left, and I don't know that they'll come back, because there's too many great games coming out.
I don't know. I think mods can still save it. I think guys like you that are like, settlement mods, I think settlement mods are how that game is going to come back and continue to exist. Because I think the settlement, it blows my mind. I said, I have a Skyrim playthrough going right now, and I was playing Skyrim, and I was thinking to myself, God, I really wish I could put down a settlement right now. And I realized that's how good the settlement system is in Fallout 4. Like, it's so well put together, and then obviously guys like you take advantage of it. And it's like, it blows me away that they shit the bed so hard on Fallout 76 when all they had to do is just make it Fallout Settlement Edition, and it would have been great. It would have been great.
I honestly think it might be some sort of engine limitation, mostly because they built it on the tech for Fallout 4, and I know all the limitations now with the workshop stuff, because I can crash anybody's game if I want to with just adding a few things in there. So there are certain limitations I could see that once you introduce the multiplayer component of all of a sudden, all of this stuff has to be persisted all the time for 24 to 30 players. Like, that's a stretch for that engine. So I think they basically they're gonna have to go back to the drawing board and rethink things before, and then when it comes back around for Fallout 5, they'll have an engine that's capable. They'll know, because when they've acknowledged in plenty of interviews that they thought the settlement system was going to be a dud. They almost cut it. Apparently, it wasn't until at some point.
Even Fading Signal's the guy that makes like the camping mods and stuff for Skyrim. Like, he's been making those for so long, and they were so popular. They must have I don't know. I don't know how much of a finger on the pulse that Bethesda has on the mod scene, but it's like I could already tell.
I think my bet is it's part of the problem is that their development cycle is so long. When your development cycle is 5 years long, it's hard to react to the market.
Yeah, it could be.
So it could just be a matter of they're just way behind. So they saw, a lot of people have said that the settlement system in Fallout 4 plays like a cleaner, simplified version of the what's the mod called? Something Settler for New Vegas, and Real-Time Settler is essentially what it plays like.
Yeah.
I haven't played that mod, so I can't verify that. But I wouldn't be shocked if they were using mods as R&D for their next games, because that seems totally reasonable.
I mean, when I first saw the settlement system, I immediately thought of Fading Signals mod, the camping mod. Where you can put down, it blew my mind when I was playing Skyrim, and it's like, oh, I can just put a bedroll down. That's awesome. And that's the first thing I thought of when I saw the Fallouts. So I'm sure they do, but yeah, I don't know. That's hilarious to think that they would have thought it would be a dud. When it's
Right.
by
Well,
far the
that's
best
I mean that's
feature.
what it's showed in the interviews, and there's a point. I know there's one where Todd Howard says like it wasn't until this particular demo where they made a Vault Boy out of the little light modules that you can color in the game. Like once we saw that, we're like, okay, yeah, needs to stay. This is really cool. But there's certain parts about the gameplay that seem very rushed and pointless, like the actual settlers and the fact that you make them food. I mean, that's where I took advantage of that.
Yeah, well, there's a lot to be improved on, and
expanded
obviously
on
mods do that, which is why I still have some hope for Fallout 76. I've never put I put an hour into one of the beta tests, and then I never touched it again.
Yeah.
So it's it's one of those. I'm still hopeful. I want it to be good. I really do. I really want it to be good. I mostly just want to explore the world, though. I'd love to play just solo Fallout 76. And in an FOV.
Yeah, I think I'll definitely be. I'll 100% be picking up a subscription to their however they do it. I assume it'll be like you rent a server or something for $15 a month or whatever.
Yeah.
But it'll be interesting to see what the mod tools look like. What did they gut from it? So like, what's still possible between Fallout 4 and 76? Because so far, for the most part, with at least between Skyrim and Fallout 4, they didn't really take anything away. They just give you new stuff to play with.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be that bad. I mean, like I said, like if it's a solo experience and it's a private server and all that stuff, why would they cut anything out? I can't imagine why. Like it's private servers.
Right.
Who cares? Like let people cheat if they want to cheat. Admins can deal with that.
Right. Well, I think that's the fun of the Bethesda games is you essentially get to, and mods is the most popular mods seem to be the ones that let you trick yourself into thinking you're not cheating when in fact all these custom weapons are always super overpowered and
the Chem Lab, but you got to do it because if you don't do it, you'll get like, oh god. It reminds me of the Crucible mod. I put the making the big giant Doom sword on the Atronarch. I don't know how to pronounce that word. Atronarch.
Yeah,
Forge.
I don't think I've said that aloud either.
I don't think I've ever said that out loud. The Atronarch Forge. I'm pretty sure someone said it like that in the game. Anyway, I put the sword in the Atronarch Forge, so you had to make it with that, and that was like people could not figure it out. I had the recipe on the web page, on the mod page. I had a book right next to the Atronarch Forge. It's all spelled out. People could not figure out how to make the damn sword. And a part of that could just be other mods messing with the thing because it's kind of a janky... Yeah. I mean, that's the first workbench if you really think about it. Like making things from scratch kind of... I imagine that's how a lot of that started. But it's... if you don't make things readily available, people don't tend to find them. And
that's a decision a lot of players give me flack about because for the longest now I've broken on it, but for the longest time the only way you could start my mod was to go to the Museum of Freedom, and a lot of people's complaint was like, well, I don't want to get anywhere near Preston.
Yep. I would have said the same thing.
I have it set up so that you don't actually have to go to Preston's room. You can dodge him and just leave his quest there. But people's complaint was I don't want to have that quest even started in my log. I was like, all right, well that's
people are that specific.
I don't know what to tell you. I like, well, here's a console command you can use to get around it. But yeah, people, if it's not, there are tons of people who will just report your mod's broken, it doesn't work, there's nothing in the menu. I was like, well, you didn't watch the 30-second quick start video I made.
Good luck getting people to read mod pages. I put things.
I know.
What is it? I have a how to get in like all caps all over my mod pages, and people still ask. Yeah. That's why I do. I feel bad about putting everything on the Chem Lab, and it's like because it is. You're right. It's cheating, but there's no better way to.
Well, I mean, there are two. I think there are a couple of better ways, and that's what I've been trying to experiment with. And I don't know what the best way is. And personally, for me, the best way is the immersive way. I want to find it out in the game world at a balanced time. That's kind of how I design all my stuff around. Although, I mean, for the most part, now it's just that holotape. Most of the other stuff you have to really work for, which I actually wanted to talk about one of those things in a minute here. But I think planting it in the world is the best way. But the problem is it's hard to, like, I guess you almost have to have two ESPs if you want to do it that way. It's like, here's the main file. Here's the main file for the average noob who just wants to open up a mod and not have to work at all and just wants to experiment. Because I think those people who complain are the ones who they didn't actually want to start a playthrough. They want to like play around with your weapon for 20 minutes and then turn it off.
Yeah.
That's who I imagine are the people that are complaining. Then an alternate file for the people who want it's the immersion to be, find it in some balanced way, or have to fight a boss or do some puzzles or whatever. Because the players, I think a lot of the players like us who will sit down, like you said, you're in the middle of a Skyrim playthrough.
Yeah.
I know you mean serious business when you say that. You're talking hundreds of hours.
Yep.
And I think those of us who do that would like as much as possible to be in there to find, because then it gets us a new sense of that exploration of like, oh, I don't remember this being here. And then, oh, it's from a mod. Cool.
You can't please them all.
It looked like you were experimenting, though, with that, because some of your mods, you planted them on NPCs. Some of them you've used level lists.
Yep.
Others are just the crafting.
Well, I do.
Was that what it was? Experimenting just to see what would work well?
Yeah. Okay. The ideal way for me would be to just place things in the world, like
sure.
but the Institute is only so big.
Okay.
There's only so much open desk space in the Institute to put the new high-tech guns. Like eventually some other modder is going to put something on that shelf, or I personally have filled up all of the shelves and desks in the Institute with all sorts of crazy guns. Like you can't, it's such a power, if you use all of my mods, it's such an amazing power spike when you get the Institute, and you can just pick up a solar cannon that can call down airstrikes anywhere in the world just because you got into the Institute. It's one of those things where it's like, that's still the best way, but like there's just not enough room in the world for all that stuff.
Right.
So I've started with the most recent one, the Chosen of Adam one. I did the scripted level list injection, whatever you want to call it, and that seems to have worked pretty well, because that means it shows up in a vanilla list. This is like this is hardcore mod talk that only other modders would get. But it's one of those where it's like, if other modders use that same vanilla list, it'll still work with their mods. I can't remember the name of the other Children of Adam mod that's floating around out there, but it's the big one. It's the other big one. Right. But it works with that mod flawlessly because they both use that list, and it just injects directly into it. So that's the best. That's probably the best way. But I don't think I'll ever not use the Chem Lab, because it's too.
It takes care of that subset of users who are going to yell at you.
Those people that can't quite figure it out, and very few people I think have a problem not scrolling to the bottom of the Chem Lab list. I put an X at the beginning of every. Fallout has the sub menus within the sub menus within the sub menus, or whatever it is.
Right.
I always put an X in front of my name, in front of the project name, so that it goes to the bottom of the Chem Lab list, and it's easy to ignore. That's the best I can do. And I think plus the scripted injections are the best way to get a mod into the world with pleasing the most amount of people, which to me is fine.
I think the nice thing about the scripted injection too is you get to kind of level gate it then, which is a nice way to prevent it from being overpowered if people want to ignore the chem thing, because then you don't have to worry about it just popping up at level 5 because it rolled randomly.
Yeah. There's a lot of ways to do it, but it's one of those where every one of my mods is so stupidly different. Like it's one of those where it's like, it's also it's a matter of like, you go long enough in between mods that you forget the lessons that you learned in the last one.
Sure.
Like, I don't make guns every time, so I pretty much forget what I did. What did I do last time with the cryo lance or whatever, and I don't remember the lessons I did there. So.
Not much of a self-note taker?
Yeah, it's not so much that I'm a self-note taker. It's that, the notes are all there for you in like Fallout 4 Edit. It takes you a second to look it up, but you don't necessarily know why you did it. And I do take notes on my mods, but
no, I think as a coder, I'm so used to almost telling myself a story while I'm coding. Like, I've just put so many comments in because I know that exact thing is going to happen. I'm going to come back in 6 months and need to edit it and have no idea what the hell I did.
Yeah.
So now I find myself even doing that with things like making models and stuff, because we take advantage of all the Fallout assets and use the static collection system to build new models within the CK.
Mm-hmm.
And even those steps, I write them all out, and it turns out it's useful because then I can give them out as tutorials. But I do it for myself first because I know exactly what you're saying there. I'm gonna have to relearn everything later otherwise.
Yeah, it's I tend to
just
an
write
involved
myself
process,
tutorials.
There's lots of like phases to it. You by the time you're on phase 6, you've forgotten how phase 1 works. that's at least how it is for me. I gotta rev up whenever I'm starting a new project. It feels like I'm revving up ZBrush for like the first time in ages, and I'm like, oh god, I gotta remember this interface. And if you've ever used ZBrush, that's quite the interface to remember.
I have not. It's too intimidating to me. I know how to do basic 3D modeling. I learned 3D Studio in my high school and college years,
same here.
I never used it for anything. It just kind of was. It was just fun.
Yeah.
And I tried to I modded Quake 3 with it. Built a lot of gun and character models for that, but never anything real life use. And then now I come back to it, and it's like, oh, it's exactly the same interface still today.
Max is great
but
like that.
ZBrush I open, and it's like, nope, this is not for me. This is for an artist.
ZBrush will scare the shit out of anyone that's like when I first learned modeling, I think my first modeling program ever was Rhinoceros, which isn't really a modeling program.
Okay.
That's what do you call it? CAD drawing? I'm not sure the exact wording for it. But it's a very technical program, or it was. I don't know if it even still exists anymore.
Yeah, I don't think it still exists, or if it does, it got folded into.
Yeah, I'm sure Adobe bought it, or not Adobe, Autodesk bought it and killed it. They're good at that. But yeah, that was my first modeling program, and like I went on to 3ds Max in high school. If I think about it, Rhinoceros was junior high or something like that, and 3ds Max was.
I remember that name, and it sounds really old.
It sounds like very old, very old, and it was old when I got my hands on it. But it was just what was on the computer at the time, so of course I'm gonna mess around with it. But yeah, and then 3ds Max is like, I don't know. It has a file menu at the top left. You know what I mean? ZBrush doesn't have a file menu at the top left. That's the first thing people know. Wait, how do I save my project? It's like, well, you do everything through hotkeys, and if you don't know the hotkeys, you're just sort of SOL. But yeah, ZBrush is a very scary program in that regard, and I don't blame you for being scared of it. Took me a long time.
It's pretty powerful. It's pretty powerful, though. I've seen the work people can do it, and it's pretty amazing.
It's a standard for like everything now. Like everything is based on it. I think like what's the name of that? There's another 3D program that can do really nice sculpting, but I don't remember what it is. I don't think it's 3D Code. 3D Code is something else. I got too many stupid programs in my head now. But yeah, ZBrush is like the standard.
I have no idea. That's outside of my realm. I've mostly retired from calling myself an artist of any type, and now I'm strictly into the programming region. So
I was able to power through ZBrush because it's like when you realize just how much ZBrush is used by, like all Hollywood movies made with ZBrush,
right?
All special effects, all video game assets, they all start in ZBrush. And when you understand that, and if you really want to get into that stuff and make video game assets that look like they belong in the video game, ZBrush is where you go, and you just have to power through it. You will figure it out. The other thing there is like tutorials nowadays are so good. These like, and not like, I don't know why anyone would. This is me railing against college, but why would you ever go to college to make video games? Because the information. Well, I know why you would. It's to make like social connections, which is very important in this business.
Right.
But like the actual knowledge to make assets, at least with art assets, you can learn all that stuff on Gumroad and just buying like cheap tutorials. Like you pay, I think the most expensive tutorial I've bought is like $70 from Matt Thorpe. I think I could be getting that completely backwards, but it was the most expensive one I've ever bought, and it's like 70 hours or something like that of video.
Holy crap.
High quality video. And the guy takes literally a blank canvas in ZBrush and has a finished video game low poly asset at the end of it. And it's like that kind of exposure and experience is only $70. And like, how can you argue with that price? He probably puts it on sale all the time too, so it's probably even cheaper than that. And it's just like, or you could go to a video game college. I'm making the quotation marker sign. You can't see it, but I'm making it. You go to a video game college and get an education, and you'd spend thousands of dollars to get that same information. So I don't know why video game colleges are a thing. If you're listening to this and you're thinking about going to a video game college, please do not. Go to a regular college, make connections, do it that way. Don't go to a video game college.
Yeah, I think that's the whole... Well, I mean, obviously that scandal that's going on right now with all those rich people who paid for their kids to get into college, I think it's made it just made it crystal clear what I think we all secretly knew was going on, which is that college is all about just connections. Like and aside from maybe STEM fields where you're learning actual engineering and stuff, for the most part, most stuff you're better off actually learning it just by doing it.
Yeah.
So, But
yeah.
there are other gates there too where going to college is helpful, like the fact that I mean, obviously we can sail the 7 seas for this, but things like 3D Studio Max are not cheap. So
educational versions are, and hey, I'm not selling anything with my mods, so
true.
you can get it's perfectly fine to use educational stuff. I use a professional license for ZBrush just because I think ZBrush's licenses are dirt cheap. Adobe not Adobe, the Autodesk license isn't. It's a perpetuating thing, which is God. It kills me. It's expensive. Autodesk, screw you guys. And but yeah, the ZBrush is so dirt cheap compared to other stuff.
Yeah, I assume that won't last if they're the industry standard. Eventually, somebody's going to buy them and jack up the price.
Yeah. Speaking of that, that's the other program I use is a Substance Painter, and that just got bought by Adobe. And I'm so hey, I think you still can if you ever want to get into to video game asset hobby making or whatever. Get you a copy of Substance Painter now, and that license should last you before it gets
rolled into Creative Cloud. You got to spend $50 a month for it.
Yeah, and you have to start paying monthly for it. Yeah. But that's
I'm anticipating soon they're gonna, because Creative Cloud, like I have Creative Cloud, I use it so much.
Still a good
I use
service.
so much of that
it's great
software.
Service if you use the programs.
Yeah, I think if you use 2 or 3 of them, it's a fine deal considering how often they update them. But man, I can't imagine they're not going to split it into multiple services soon, where it's just going to try and then jack up the price because they keep buying so much software. Where it's going to be like, all right, now if you want the full version, it's going to cost you $80 a month or something crazy.
I was just thinking like, I would love it if I never had to touch Photoshop again and I could just do everything in a Substance Painter, which I guess is the goal, but that's probably years out. But it's still one of those where it's like, it's nice just sort of having a program be on its own. And
sure.
I don't know if Substance Painter is going to stay like that for very long.
Yeah, I would bet not. I would bet ultimately their goal is to roll it all into the monthly service model because that's just what's best for them.
Yeah,
pretty much everybody wants to get into that. Obviously, even our beloved Bethesda couldn't resist the service model, even though they're not charging for monthly access. Just the potential to have customer. It's really funny to me that they felt the need to do that because they have probably the most loyal player base in all of gaming.
Yeah, they do.
We are all like that's why I thought Creation Club was going to be much different than it turned out to be. I thought it was going to be something more like they were going to try and bring on companies like Obsidian and other developers to make cool stuff for them so that there would just be perpetual new DLC for us to purchase. And like, heck yeah, that sounds amazing. And then in reality, it's like, oh, these are more micro-y weapon mods and stuff. So that's unfortunate. But that to me, I think if they had gone the other way, I think they would have had a built-in audience. They would have been able to sell that stuff forever of just having companies roll in and make new DLC or even hobbyists coming in and doing that. Because some of the stuff, especially for Skyrim, some of the stuff that gets released for that from modders, like what's the latest one from the project Aho? Is it Aho? I'm gonna screw that up.
Indril?
Not Endurial. And
it's that murder mystery one, right?
That one's amazing too. Yeah, no, there was one that just released, and I can't think of the name of it. And Kobus is going to kill me because he's on that team. But there was a mod that just released a few days ago, unbelievable. And the stuff is like DLC quality and size. And these guys just like put it together in their free time. It'll be like 4 or 5 guys just spend a year bashing their heads against it and put out this crazy content. And like those of us who are Bethesda players just keep coming back and playing Skyrim cool and
if Bethesda did
Fallout
something
over
like
and over.
that, but. I don't know. Yeah. I can't complain. I'm glad this thing. I think I can respect Bethesda's hands-off approach, but I don't know if it's. I would like to see more people getting like those guys. Like imagine how great that would be if you worked on that mod for a few years, and Bethesda just comes in and says, "Hey, we're gonna pay you to let us distribute this. Put a price tag on it and distribute it for you." Like that'd be great. That's like every modder's dream, I'd imagine. I mean, I'll admit I'd like to get paid to do modding. I kind of am. I started a Patreon.
Sure.
But like that's.
But it's never enough to sustain you. Just with the Patreon stuff's never enough for sustaining. Everybody go. I'm gonna make sure I put a link in there. Everybody go donate to Niero. His stuff is amazing.
You don't have to. Do that. I still don't. I still am building the Patreon. It's not worth your money yet.
Oh, you know what? I think most people who want to donate, like I never again. The people I donate to Patreon, I never look at their page again. I don't care about any of the benefits. All I care about is I want to like support that artist and make sure they keep doing their thing.
Yeah, that's the way I look at it too. That's the way I wish it worked that way, but like I see other Patreons that of people I like, and they do so much stuff. That's why I didn't want to do a Patreon for a long time. Is because there's so much you can put back into it, and I feel like I don't want to spend my time doing that. I want to spend my time making stuff. You know, I don't want to.
Right.
I already I put a lot of effort into my mod pages. Thankfully I like putting a lot of effort into my mod pages with like rotating GIFs so that you can see what the GIFs. Good Lord, why do we still use GIFs? Thank you, Robin. This is directly at you. Please do whatever it is you have to do to make WebMs a thing on the Nexus. But I put a lot of effort into that stuff. And you know, I enjoy that, but at the same time, it's still like that's the final phase of any mod is sort of the production value or the marketing of it, and it's like I hate doing that stuff. I can't stand that that's necessary to make it look professional. I just want to move on to the next project or make something, and that's just how it goes. Like that's how it's that part of it is a necessary step, and I was so terrified of Patreon becoming all of that, and I think I'm gonna be able to get away with it with just continuing to put out mods with it and just leaving it as an option up there. But yeah, I don't know. I'm never gonna be like sending out T-shirts to people who subscribe to my Patreon. I can't even imagine spending my time doing that. Who would want to?
Yeah,
I
don't think you need to. So I have a fairly successful Patreon for our team going, and what we do is we give sneak peeks to things. So
yeah, that's what I gotta do.
Give access to stuff we're working on, and then I do like a month-end developer update where I tell them about what we've got, the secret projects we're working on, and give them some video footage of people on the team working. And then for T-shirts, we just handle the merch through Threadless. So. Oh, okay. It's all hands off. Like I couldn't imagine if I had to have boxes of T-shirts in my basement. That's just not going to work. Yeah.
I was going to say how many T-shirts have you sold? But it's like that's not really. I don't know. There can't be that many. I can't imagine. Like I said, I don't think anyone would want to wear a T-shirt with my face on it, or you know what I mean. Or my logo. I don't even have a logo.
No, we sell a reasonable amount of T-shirts, but I think because we've been trying to brand it with the logo, we've got our own logo and everything, and I think it's kind of its own little game within there, as opposed to like yours is a lot of individual mods. So you don't have like a standardized thing emblem that's in each one of them, and you can't can't use anything with Fallout because then you'd get hit by copyright claims. But
oh gosh, yeah, that sounds like another batch of headaches. That's another reason I'm that's why I've always been a solo modder. You know, I've done small stuff for other teams, but I've never like joined a team, and because I just like. I can't stand the idea of like, I don't know. I feel like other people would get in my way. That sounds terrible, but it's not so much that. It's like, I want to do the thing. I know I can do the thing correctly. I'm just gonna do the thing.
Sure. Yeah, I find I enjoy both. I enjoy doing some on my own and some stuff with a team. There's certain things that I just will never be able to do by myself, not even just because of skills, but just due to lack of time. Like I'm already putting in every moment of time. So then at some point it's like, all right, well, if I want to do more, I have to invite other people to join me in on this. And then if you're talking as far as when I was mentioning like the Patreon stuff and the copyright and all that stuff, for us, the Patreon account, all that money, none of us are living on. It all just gets rolled back into the project. So purchasing assets and web space and everything. So because I would never want to deal with if it was trying to figure out how to distribute finances among a team.
That's the other killer with big teams is drama. I got a message. I'm not sure how much I should say about this one. I got a message from someone on a team, and they were asking for permission for assets. And in the message, they mentioned they want to use my assets because a previous member of their team quit the team and it was not a clean break. You know what I mean? Ooh, and it's like, you know, don't include that in the message you're sending to me, because I don't want to hear that.
We had somebody recently join our forums, and like they made this big post, and it was fairly funny, and there was a bunch of useful information in it, but at the top it was really aggro, and they were like yelling about people from the last forums they were hanging out on. I was like, don't do that. And so I just like sent a message. I'm like, I'm editing your first post so that you don't instantly get hated by everyone on our forum.
I don't know if that's
Yeah,
people that are new to the internet or just people who have just coasted obliviously through the internet their entire lives. I'm never really sure. I'm an aged internet veteran. I grew up on the damn thing, so it's one of those.
I mean, well, there's people in real life who do that too. It's the TMI. Sometimes there are some things you hold back a little while until you know the people.
A lot of people don't have that filter. I get that. Yeah, I get that anytime.
So why should it be different on the internet than in real life?
Yeah,
and especially when you put together as many millions of people as are on the internet, inevitably you're going to find all of those people that exist. So, so one of the things I wanted to talk to you about was the Archimedes 2.
Oh, sure.
So that weapon is amazing, and I'm glad you put it out because we redid the what's it called, the Sea Finder from New Vegas.
Fallout, yeah. New Vegas.
Yeah. We put that into some settlements, which is weird, right? Like to have a weapon mod in a settlement mod, but it was part of this like Industrial Revolution thing where you're doing a bunch of research stuff. And I've got it buried so deep in the mod, and it takes so many steps to actually get it that I bet there's like 10 people who've actually seen it. So
is that what you're saying?
What's it?
You didn't even. Oh no,
it's in our. We put it in the trailer. Like we made a big deal out of it because it was. You know, we had like Schubergler put together this amazing weapon model for it, and it took us forever to get all the effects working and everything. But then you put that out real close after we had released that patch.
I didn't even know you.
Maybe it was a few months. Actually, I think we released ours in June, and I think you did yours later that year because it was last year you put that out, right?
Yeah. I'll be honest. I don't do well. It's like settlement mods. It's like I feel bad saying this to your face. I don't use your settlement mods because I don't play. Oh,
that's
the game.
Okay.
You know
right. No, I get that a lot. You know what? Most of the people on my team don't play the mod. So
yeah.
It's just nobody has time to play and develop this much stuff. No, I was going to say I'm glad you put that out because that's such a fun mechanic to be able to call down those satellite rays and blow people up.
That mod took a long time to come together, just for a number of reasons, but it was also built in reverse. Like normally my procedure is, start up ZBrush, start building a cool gun, get the cool gun textured, all that low poly nonsense, whatever mod talk, get it in game, and then start figuring out the special effects. And in Bethesda games, we don't really have access to the special effects tools that Bethesda does. We do everything with NIF scope, and
oh, you do all those in NIF scope?
I do. That entire effect was made in NIF scope. It was animated in NIF scope.
Oh my god!
But that's what I mean. The whole project was done in reverse. So I did all that NIF scope stuff first, which means I had that satisfying, that amazingly satisfying explosion set up and ready to go before I had any other part of the mod ready. So I think there might be some videos of the thing floating around out there. But it was like this real janky looking gun that just you couldn't tell what the hell it was. It was just a mess of parts in the hand because I still was experimenting with stuff on it. But it was just like I had every time I'd get in game, I'd be like, you put the laser. It was the same 3 vendors that it's the, how the Fallout 4 has the wandering vendors. Like I had a save game. I've used the same save game for 3 years now, and it's just, I used the same settlement in the same save game, and there's 3 NPCs that sit on a bridge, and they're always there in this save game. And every time I would start up the game to test something, I would just blow them to hell. And it's the most satisfying thing in the world because that explosion, the 3 lasers sort of converging on each other, and then the build up, and then the huge boom, and it's like that whole mod was built in reverse, and I played with that every time I started up the game, and it was that was the best part about that mod, was playing around with that. I don't think I'd ever do a mod in reverse like that again though.
Oh man, I can't believe you do all that animation in NIF scope. We're gonna have to put our heads together after this or some other time. I can show you some of the workflows in 3D Studio. We've reverse engineered a lot of it.
Oh, you've actually done it in 3D. Oh, that's
it's much easier.
Is it? Well, I don't know. It's once I figured it out, it was not that tough. The amount of moving parts in that 3 lasers coming together, there really isn't that much movement. It's there's a singular thing moving everything all at once, and then each node of the 3 coming together is slowly scaling, and it's not as much effort as you might think. It wasn't that bad, though. Some of the stuff you can do in NIF scope animation wise is that bad. I'm starting to think what is it, like the laser effects, like the actual gun when it's not in call down mode, when it's in regular gun mode, that kind of stuff. That stuff can still be pretty tedious. But the actual explosion wasn't that bad. It wasn't. It was fun. I enjoyed it. But I'd love to know if there's more ways to do it. But then again, why relearn it if I got it working?
Well, to save yourself a headache, because a lot of that stuff, like a lot of the effects and everything, can just be done with the modifiers in 3D Studio, so that you can just use actual gravity waves and wind and things like that to handle all of it. So you don't have to just manually be doing that. So it's definitely a lot easier in 3D Studio. I find that with NIF Scope, the first challenge is I usually have to find a NIF that, because I've done a lot of editing in NIF Scope, nothing to the level you're doing. And it's always, you got to find something that's pseudo close, and then you're just punching in so many manual numbers that I get real tired of it real fast.
Well, yes, and I guess I don't have to deal with that so much, because like the NifScope is still a great program. I'm not gonna put down NifScope.
Oh, it's an amazing program, but it's not designed for doing a lot of hand editing of.
Well, that's what I mean. Though, it's like I don't do that much hand editing. Those effects were the only thing I've really done a ton of hand editing for. Usually when I set up a project, I make sure it's exporting from Max in as close of a finished state as possible. So I'm not tweaking numbers later. There's a few exceptions to that, like what do you call those? I'm trying to think of when I last used it. Like vertex colors and stuff like that still do some weird things in NifScope, but that's again. I'm getting into weird mod talk again, or like modern only talk.
I think people are used to it from me. I occasionally will go into talking about code. It's all right.
But yeah, I still do a little bit of stuff like that. But yeah, for the most part, it's still I don't mind doing that stuff in NifScope. It's honestly like I said, modding goes in phases. You start out, once I'm in the NifScope phase, I usually am not going back to the texturing phase or anything like that. And so once I'm in the NifScope phase, I kind of enjoy it after a while. It's like a cool down after the hardcore texturing and sitting there waiting for textures to bake.
Because it's kind of therapeutic, because it's just you have to go through X amount of work. It's like to be done.
Retopology, if you've ever done that. Retopology is the most tedious thing in the world, but at the same time, it's Can you
explain what that is? I don't know what that is offhand.
Oh, topology. Okay, so when you take a high poly mesh, which is something you get in ZBrush, a person's face, you can't put that in Fallout. You have to retopologize it and make it low poly, and then you project the texture onto that low poly. And so retopology is like, you wouldn't do it for a person's face, but for like a gun, you would still do it. Retopology is like I said, it's therapeutic. It's impossible to not make progress on it as long as you have the program open and you're connecting dots. You're making progress on it. It's a great cooldown before you get to the hardcore texturing side. So you make it a high poly. And then you retopologize, and that retopology is a nice cooldown before you get to the textures. Because, like I said,
I feel you on that. So for my equivalent would be nav meshing. I find nav meshing to be that. It's very. A lot of people find it very tedious. I just find it's like, it's just got to be done. It's easy. You're just slowly connecting dots. You're just kind of drawing triangles. It's nice and simple.
Yep, that's what NifScope is to me. It's like it's the cooldown after the texturing is done, and sort of struggling with the rigging of it.
It sounds like you must have some better workflows than I do in NifScope, because to me, every time I think of NifScope, I think of having to manually duplicate nodes and then enter in all of their transformation and rotation data by hand, and that drives me insane.
Yeah, see, that's the thing is I know NifScope has a whole bunch of stuff, or I've seen the meshes that are used in settlements. Yeah, and I've never really dug into them, so I don't know how robust NifScope is for that. So we're in two very different wings of modding. So
that's true. I think it's pretty similar. Because most of the stuff that I have to do in NifScope is editing the animations for the power grid because all of the power grid is actually handled through the animation through the HKX file.
Oh, really?
So I think it's probably pretty similar, the stuff that I'm editing. Is it in NifScope, are there tools where you're dragging points around with the mouse that I'm not aware of? Because for me, it's always entering numbers.
Well, yes, there is. If you can drag UVs around in NifScope, and I do that very occasionally because it's not good to have different UVs on your final mesh than it is in Max. But there's a little bit of that. But yeah, I see. I get what you mean here. Let's see if I can't find something and open it up and look at it, because I am curious what you're looking at. Anyway, but
so like if you open up, but if you like open up, say, a generator from workshop mode, you'll see what I'm talking about. There are nodes that are set up to do just the like vibration animation, but then there's also an HKX file set up with a series of animations, and I imagine that's similar to what a weapon has going on in it.
Yeah, well, kind of. The weapon animations there's like two different levels of. Yeah, no, I'd say yes. You're probably right. There's like two different levels to weapon animations. Like there's the actual animations that are handled by the plugin, and then the actual animations that the gun does. Like the Gauss rifle is a perfect example. The Gauss rifle
where it's got its little screen that does its thing.
Yeah, it's got a bunch of moving parts on there, and all those moving parts, all those small individual moving parts, are handled by the NIF, and like the reload animation, the arms moving around, that's handled by the HKX file. I don't touch HKX files. I did that on the Archimedes a little bit. I don't ever want to get in that again. I'm not an animator. I wish I was, but I don't know.
So all of because some of yours have really fantastic, like the break action.
That's just the double barrel.
Is that custom? Oh, that's just the double barrel.
Just
okay,
the double barrel. I work backwards from vanilla animation. You're not gonna beat the vanilla animation. Well, maybe you are. Some of the
a couple of them I've seen some improvements on, but I think most of them are pretty damn good.
My problem is like I think one of some of the early mods, like one of the early shotgun mods that had like a proper reload animation where they actually load the correct number of shells in it. I remember looking at that and being like, oh, this looks so janky. I never want to use custom animations ever. And I sort of have based all of my opinions on animations on that, which is totally unfair because I'm sure there's some really good animations out there. But yeah, the break action laser was like it's just I lined everything up to the double barrel, and the double barrel has very few moving parts. You know, it's got a hinge, and then the two shells pop out, and that's really all there is to it. So it's not tough to make things match that. But that one also
is animation something you're not looking to get into? Because I know the Rizzler just put out an insane like 15 or 16 hour weapon making tutorial, and he covers all the animation and export process in
really
there.
Well, maybe I'll look at that. I don't know. Like I said, animations is one of those where it's like, well, it's I think
we're exciting the listeners here, the idea that you're doing all this stuff without animation and that there's a potential we could see some Niero animation one day. That's pretty exciting.
There's no point. It'd be another 4 years before I could make something that was halfway decent like I can. I mean, that's just it. Like, you think of I'm not a dev. I'm not a video game dev. I do not work in the industry. Right. But if I did work in the industry, I would not be expected to be putting together a ZBrush high poly, a low poly, a texture, and then animating it myself. No dev house expects that.
Not anymore. It's been 20 some years since that probably had to be done like that.
Development teams are too big for one person to do all of those jobs. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm never going to touch animations because if I do ever get a job in the industry, I'm never going to have to know how to do that. And it sucks, sure. But at the same time, it kind of I don't feel too bad because, like I said, it would be 4 years before I was decent enough at animations.
How long did it take you to get to the quality level you're at right now? Because you said you didn't really do this aside from until you were modding, right? Prior to your Fallout 4 stuff, you were mostly doing kit bashing out of Skyrim. So how long did it take you to get to this quality? Like, how long did it take you to make your first mod that involved custom assets? Because a lot of your stuff, like you said, the jetpack was mostly just reusing assets. Yeah. I think was it maybe the Plasrail was your first? No, maybe the.
I think the Plasrail. Yeah, the Plasrail was probably the first one. I did that entirely in Max. I hadn't used ZBrush at that point. Hey, there's good. I did that. Not only did I do that only in Max, I did that only in Photoshop using.
Okay.
Okay. Like, I did. I mentioned that I did 3ds Max in high school, right?
Sure.
I didn't go to college for anything to do with it. I basically dropped all 3D stuff for years. I do relatively boring building management stuff now, which is very boring. I don't enjoy it, but it pays the bills.
Pays the bills, right?
But that's what I went to school for, and I do all that now. And the idea is that I sort of came back to 3ds Max later on, and when I started getting into Skyrim and then eventually Fallout 4, I came back to 3ds Max, so I was familiar with it. So I still knew what I was doing when it came to modeling. And then I sort of, as I was making the Plasrail, I sort of started thinking, there's got to be a better way to do this. How the hell do the pros do this shit? You know what I mean? And that was when I started, actually looking into things. What was this must have been like 3 years ago. So it doesn't take that long to get into this stuff, but it's one of those where it's, I started from basically nothing. I didn't even know what ZBrush was when I started playing Fallout 4. Actually, maybe I did. I knew what Substance Painter was before I knew what ZBrush was. But that's because of God, what's the name of the guy that made the dragons in Skyrim? The artist that worked at Bethesda. I think he doesn't work there anymore. I can't remember his name, but he inspired me. He's the one that I actually was in his Twitch channel because he streams every now and again. I'm hating myself for not remembering his name because he inspired me so much. But he was where I first got exposed to like this is how professional developers do this stuff, and it's just general curiosity from there sort of built up. And like I said, like when I started looking at ZBrush, it scared the hell out of me. Holy crap! Going from Max to ZBrush, that is a terrifying proposition.
You're making me want to go load it up just so I can see the differences because I didn't even give it a fair shot because I'm like, oh no, this is an artist tool. This isn't for me. I'm no longer.
Oh
an
no,
artist.
you're 100%
but like
right.
3D, but it sounds like 3D Max to me makes a lot of sense. Like it's a very
it looks they're kind of the same.
And also just like it's almost designed for people like engineers. Like it's barely not a CAD software. I mean,
it's definitely bridges the gap between art and CAD software is what 3ds Max is. Whereas like Maya is probably leaning a little more towards the art side of things. I've never used Maya.
So where does ZBrush fit into that?
ZBrush is pure art. You would never ever wait in my workflow. Everything starts at ZBrush.
Right. But like I guess for example, when I want to start a model in 3D Max, I generally will grab some sort of poly and start extruding sides and dragging vertices around, and applying edits like that. So everything to me is very, it's all based on a box essentially with a certain amount of sides. How does the workflow start in something like ZBrush?
In ZBrush, everything would probably start as just a blob of clay. Like you got to figure that's what ZBrush is. It's clay. It's
clay. Okay.
I mean, you can get into
this is how little I remember opening the software, didn't try to do anything. I was just like, wanted to know what it was, and opened it up, and then just was like, oh, this is some weird 3D art software. It's probably for texturing. Closed it, never opened it again.
Yeah, I can understand that. But coming from Max, it is. It's like looking at imagine jumping on like being abducted by aliens and like looking at their screens for interfacing with something. Like that's basically what it is. Like Max has like all these buttons everywhere, and for the most part, you can kind of learn what all the buttons do. There's so many buttons hidden between so many menus, underneath so many different covers, and so many things in ZBrush that are just like not intuitive at all. And you don't use 90% of them. I probably use like 5% of ZBrush, but it's one of those.
So it's more like instead like Max is very mathematically driven, whereas this is much more artistically driven with your brush strokes essentially.
There's no accuracy. Well, there's accuracy if you want it to be accurate, but it doesn't have to be accurate. Is the whole idea. Like I said, it's
gotcha.
Think of just like a big lump of clay. How would you work with clay in 3D in a 3D program?
So how do you get such good looking? For example, your Cryolance, like it has those really good hard edges on it. How do you get something like that out of clay?
Well, look, that's the other thing. That's the other side of ZBrush, and that's just kind of the shitty part about it. Is ZBrush has a specific type of modeling called the Z modeler, which basically lets you use clay tools on like you do in 3ds Max, like you were doing your like pushing vertexes around. You can basically do that in ZBrush too, but they call it Z modeling, and that's I don't know. It's one of those where it's like I know professional devs who won't even touch the Z modeler because they're so used to doing things the 3ds Max way. But the Cryolance was done entirely in ZBrush. But it is. It's basically it's basically like pushing models. Like if you have I'm talking in circles here. I apologize. It's so difficult.
It's always hard to explain. Stuff. It is, especially because it's a visual piece of software.
ZBrush. But it is. It's like you take a blob of clay is a million verts, right? Well, you're using the same tools to work with a million verts as you are working with 100 verts in a hard surface piece. And that's what the Cryolance basically started out as. So it looks really intricate, and it is, but it all started out as you start out as the low poly thing, pushing verts around, few verts. It's very low poly, and then you subdivide it a bunch of times, and then you can start doing all sorts of crazy stuff with it. I think I did that. I think I did the cryolines before booleans were even a thing. Like booleans were not a big thing in ZBrush until like a couple of years ago. So it's like that's kind of a mind blower if you think about it, because booleans are like have always been such a huge thing, and they weren't so much of a thing in ZBrush. But
yeah, and booleans. I mean, most people listening probably have no idea what you're talking about. But my God, those are powerful. I've seen videos of people showing like the depth of, like, they take a gun and then show you what happens when they hide each level of the boolean and how deep it goes. It's like that's nuts, but it's so cool. Yeah,
but that's the cryolance was done before that was a big thing, but it's still one of those where it's, you know, it's you get access to that sort of thing with ZBrush. You get access to, you start out as a low poly, you build the basic shape like you would in 3ds Max, and then you subdivide it, and then you can start doing all the stuff that you would do to clay, which means, you know, you can put little grooves and markings on it that don't actually require low poly figuring. I wish I was better at the nomenclature and stuff.
well, because then you just bake those into the normals and stuff later.
Yeah, and then that stuff gets baked into the normals, and it's streamlined, so, and it's all done in one program, which is super useful.
Right.
That's why ZBrush is by far the best. If you ever want to get into any sort of 3D modeling, like, learn ZBrush, because it's not going away. It's not going away. It'll probably stick around for another 20 or 30 years before someone figures out how to beat it.
To me, what automatically in my head we go to is with that kind of thing is VR. That seems to be ideal. Where especially if we had like, and I know the controllers now wouldn't work for it. We would need like haptic gloves or something. Mm-hmm. But just the idea of like getting in there and actually doing it with your hands in 3D space. Have you messed around with VR?
No, never. I would imagine my arms would get tired. You spend so many hours in ZBrush just working. I mean, I do most of my stuff. Any hard surface stuff I still do with the mouse, right? Okay. And even then, my arm gets tired. I can't imagine lifting my arms up and moving stuff around with a haptic glove or whatever.
Oh man, that just seems so exciting to me, because the view inside of the VR is mind blowing. Like that, just I can imagine how cool it would be, because there's a program Google put out, and I'm sure a bunch of people have these same sorts of things where you can paint in 3D space. And it's unbelievable. I've never experienced anything quite like that. And so I could see the way you're describing ZBrush. I'm like, it seems natural to me. The next evolution for art is probably going to be in VR. Like, as a developer tool, it seems more useful than as a gaming tool, just because there's so many problems with the locomotion where people get sick and stuff. But I don't know if they're going to be able to solve that enough to make VR long-term viable. I mean, maybe I'm totally off base there. Maybe they've got tricks coming. But from my experience in VR and trying and showing it to people, they're always super impressed, but then it kind of falls flat because they're feeling nauseous, or you know, we don't have enough space in the average living room. But as a developer tool, like the idea of that clay thing, if that's how people are working for 3D models anyway, man, that seems natural. Now I'm super curious. I'm like, definitely, like, there's no way I'm not downloading ZBrush now in the next couple of days.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely, it's one of the other way I would say is ZBrush is, this whole thing sounds like a commercial for ZBrush, but it really is. Like, it really is, it's a great program.
Brought to you by ZBrush.
No, absolutely. Hey, guys, put me on your staff. I'll take a job at ZBrush. I would love it. No, ZBrush is like, it really is just like the best tool you can possibly learn. Even if you never put any of the stuff you make in a video game, it's just, so what I want to do with ZBrush is I want to give ZBrush to like an 8-year-old kid. You know what I mean? Someone that's never experienced any of that stuff. Maybe make it a little more intuitive for a little kid. But getting a kid thinking in the way ZBrush wants you to think, and then just having them grow up with that, like you're looking at, like, there are no Michelangelos anymore, right? Think about it.
Sure.
When was the last time someone made a sculpture like the Michelangelo? Or wait, am I thinking of that wrong? Leonardo da Vinci made the Michelangelo. There's no Da Vinci's anymore.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean, but like just masterpiece artists. Well, part of the thing with that is we've gotten to the point where we can create everything in photorealism. Like, if you're not, there's so many people who can do that now. It's not special.
Yeah, well,
who can just create photorealistic, and it's like, how do you go beyond photorealistic?
Have you seen the Michelangelo? Have you seen one of those statues for real?
Yes,
like,
they're very, very impressive. I guess we don't do any. Well, nobody works with stone, so
that's what I mean. Though, is like just that level of detail. We'll never have that. I think that kind of person will come back at some point, and I think it'll happen.
You think they're going to be a 3D modeler?
I think, well, that, or they'll take it. They'll start out in 3D modeling and want to take it to stonework or something like that. They'll want to take it to actual sculpture. But like those people don't exist anymore because 3D printers exist now. And well, I guess 3D printers might get to that point eventually too. But you still have to be able to draw that detail, and that's like, I don't know. I think I would love to see a kid who has grown up on ZBrush. I would love to see what they're capable of, because I think I'm pretty good at it, but I know I can be
I think many people would agree you were very good at it. I've thought about that with programming too. Of like I want to see how early I can teach my kid to program.
Oh yeah, God, that would be so
just
awesome.
To see,
like a kid that
because like it took
C.
me, it took me forever to like for my head just like it clicked, but it took years before it all like, and now it's like it's no problem. Like, it's like breathing to me. But for years and years I would just struggle. I'd look at other people's code and I'm like, why did they do that? I don't understand it. And now it's like, one day, there it goes. So yeah, if you could do that, if you could get through that period, as a by the time you were in high school, if you had gone through that 10 years to mastery already, my God, what you think you could do?
What is it, like 10,000 hours or something to master?
10,000 hours to master. Yeah, I don't
truly master something. But if you start a kid on that real early, like,
it's probably a lot shorter.
Yeah, it's probably a lot shorter. Well, it's not so much that it's a lot shorter. It's that if it's a kid doing it. I mean, think about like how many hours a day parents park their kids in front of like Minecraft or whatever, right?
Right.
Imagine if they were parking them in front of like a creative program like ZBrush.
Well, just think about how many years you probably either of us probably wasted in front of a Nintendo.
Oh yeah, yeah. If I could go back,
the amount of hours I have sunk into the Final Fantasy series, like Jesus.
No, all those WoW hours. Holy shit.
Right.
That's
what got me to quit when I did /played one day, and I was like, nope, we're done.
No, that's not a command I ever put in. I don't want to know.
Well, now Steam does it to you on all of your games. You get to see. I'm sure if you poke your head into Steam, I mean, if you're using the F4SE or SCSI launcher, then you probably don't see it. But
oh God, I've already put 40 hours into
at the Fallout 4 page on Steam is pretty scary.
Let's see what my Fallout time is. But yeah,
one of the things. I always say that most of that time is I left the game tabbed out.
Yeah. Okay,
makes you feel better that way.
Yeah, I definitely have. My Fallout hours are not nearly accurate. But yeah, I was just gonna say I've been playing Sekiro for the last few days since it released. I already have 40 hours in it. That doesn't seem right. I think I left it on a few nights, so I didn't put that much time into it. But yeah, right. I think that's the problem with Steam time. So I don't feel too guilty about Steam time being huge.
Yeah, the /played command, man, it was a good wake up call though. Once you see some of those hours, it's like, all right, well that's like a degree, a college degree there I could have gotten that time. So, but yeah, I'm glad to be done with the MMO addictions. I like having these creative hobbies where at the end of the day, not only do I have something that I can be proud of in the sense like, okay, I actually have something I produced at the end of this, but I can also then share it with other people.
Oh, it's so satisfying. It's so much more satisfying.
Yeah, absolutely.
Spending that much time and just having something tangible. Well, it's digital, but it's still tangible.
Right. You can still go in and nuke those 3 traders from space.
Yes. I can still do that anytime I want. Although I usually play in like a clean environment, so that mod's not always turned on, but
oh yeah.
Same
that's
idea.
One of the. I don't think a lot of people recognize how few mods most mod authors actually ever see.
Yes,
because we have to keep our load order clean, otherwise we have no idea. Because like if you think about it, players, whenever you all have mods breaking on you, you have no idea what mod it is. We can't have that happen when we're trying to develop. We got to make sure we know the problem is ours to fix.
The bug report like 5 months after a mod's been released. I have a 249 mods enabled. And your mod crashes my game. Really?
Right.
Really? It's been 5 months since this mod released, and this one's causing your problems. Okay. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I can't even okay. I can't understand how people have that many mods installed or have that many mods running.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts. I'm slowly, so I'm in the process of doing a Let's Play of Fallout 4 where I let the audience tell me what mods to install. Mm-hmm. And I started out with like 40 I wanted to play with, and after 8 weeks we're at 150 already. It goes
You're
fast.
gonna have to start making ESLs soon.
Right. Well, fortunately, I've had a couple people volunteer. They're like, hey, if you need merge patches or anything, I'll handle them for you. I was like, oh, thank God, because I don't want to deal with that. But yeah, it doesn't take long to get up to those high numbers when you just start taking all the suggestions people throw out there. So when you've got people like Gopher and MXR and Juicehead and stuff putting out videos telling you about, 5-6 new mods a week, and you just grab them all. It's pretty easy to hit those 200 numbers.
Nutty to me. It's heresy to me, because I can't even imagine. Like, I'm playing Skyrim, and I know what every single mod does. Like, sure. I've opened every single mod in Xedit, and I've looked at every record that it touches, and I clean them all up myself. And I look at mods that I clean up mods myself. I trim mods that maybe you shouldn't be editing that record. You know what? You're not gonna touch that record. And I just clean them out myself, and I edit all my mods. So for every mod I have, I usually have a patch for myself. Sure. And like even with all that, I'm still only at like 70 mods. And it's like,
well, I would think that's probably self-inhibiting there, where you just know whenever you're going to install a mod, it's like, all right, am I willing to put in the hours to comb through 3,000 records?
Yeah.
Probably makes you snip some that you might have tried otherwise.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Well, yeah, that's definitely true. I don't use. Most of my modding comes through Requiem, which shout out to Requiem. I literally don't play regular Skyrim anymore. I haven't played regular Skyrim since it released. I play only the Requiem overhaul, and it's a great time. I enjoy it a lot. But that's where most of the modding comes from.
I think I'm gonna next start into Skyrim again. So did you see that post that Dark made about they're gonna tackle mod packs this year? Finally.
Yeah, I did read about that. They're actually gonna have like, what did they call it? Curated? I don't know if they used the word curated, but that's what I assumed that it was.
I mean, what I'm hoping for is it's as simple as I would be able to upload a mod list with all of the patches and the actual plugin order, and then someone else would be able to download that, and it would work exactly like it does for me. That's what I think they want to get to, and I think that is wonderful. I know that there are a lot of mod authors who are against that, because it does the problem with the mod packs, and I see their argument. I see both sides, but I'm a customer service focused person, so I always lean toward the customer side of things. And in this case, the players are the customers. Even if we're not getting paid, that's still the role they play in this transaction.
Their users are everything.
Right, and so that services them. But the problem is if you download a mod pack, then the credit that the players are going to give is going to go to the person who curated the mod pack, not each of the individual artists and coders who put all their effort in. So that's their right. I think that there's some people who feel both sides of it, but there's a lot of people who are just like, I want to get credit, and I want someone to go to my page, read the explanation that I put together. And my argument is always against that is that will limit our audience to a very minute number of people, because it takes a certain personality to be willing to go through that much trouble to play a game. The vast majority of players are exactly the type of people that you described at the beginning of needing that chem lab entry to make the weapon. They want that stuff simple, and they want it now, because that's how games are designed now. Everything is designed to be very easy and accessible, and not everybody has the time to go through all of their records in Xedit and make sure that their mods are clean. Like, most people just want to hit install, and that's it. And so the mod packs will let that happen on a bigger scale, I think. I think it's going to just open up.
I think it's a good idea, too. I don't know.
It'll just open up mod playing to a ton more people, probably.
Yeah, I think, I'm probably going to make enemies talking shit. But, I don't care if I make enemies to some of the people on the Nexus forums, because some of the mod authors are some mod authors are very, very protective of their stuff, and I just want to I can't understand giving a shit that much. You know what I mean? It's like, who cares if Joe Schmo like wants to make something creative out of derivative of your stuff? Is it really that big of a deal that you hunt that person down and make sure they write your name all over everything? And it's like, who gives a shit? Just be glad the guy is being creative. I would encourage anybody. I mean, I guess I'm part of the problem. I do require permissions on most of my stuff. Like, you can't just take my stuff and re-release it as your own. I've never said no. I've never done it. All you got to do is message me, and that I have a little thing in my inbox that says the mod you want to use, the assets, that kind of stuff. I've never said no to that stuff. So it's just, as long as you're willing to do that, I don't care. So with mod packs, I can't understand why anyone would have a problem with that. But I know a lot of people probably do. I know a lot of people are really weird.
Right. What I anticipate happening is they'll do some sort of opt-in system, and I think most of us will just it'll probably be default opt-in, and then you'd have to explicitly opt out, and then That's probably how they'll solve that, but who knows? I think he said in his article that he was going to put it out and engage with mod authors and find out what they want to see. I personally, I love the idea of mod packs. So one of the things and why I understand why some people can have a problem with it, like I don't automatically say yes to everybody who comes to me and asks for stuff because I'm concerned about compatibility. So if somebody releases like an altered version of Sim Settlements, then it's going to introduce a bunch of support problems for me.
Oh God,
so
that's a headache.
We offer like full support for the mods. So we've got, a whole forum. We've got tons of people committed to just like answering questions. And so having mods out there that I know will break the core experience for players, I have to say no to those people. I have to shut those down.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't envy you. That sounds like a chore. I don't, but that's great that you do it though. But yeah, I can understand that. I totally understand not wanting to grant everyone perfect permission or free reign. But
right,
yeah,
but if it wasn't for the systemization of it, I probably wouldn't have a problem. Like if somebody wants to bum an art asset off me, great, go for it. Or for example, I've already said that if the Fallout 4 New Vegas team wants to use the model we came up with for the Sea Finder, I would happily give that out. Same with we did the what's it called, the solar tower thing. Although our version's not probably good enough to be for that because it needed to fit on a little 512 by 512 space, whereas the one in New Vegas is pretty monstrous.
Enormous,
so, they're going to need a much higher poly model than we built. but yeah, like that type of stuff, I no problem giving that out for people to make use of. But yeah, I think it's just a matter of people have gotten used to like we get so little as mod authors. There's there's no real financial incentive to do this, and so I think that they get protective in the sense that it's like this is my creation, and the only control I have over it is what's on this mod page, and you seeing that, and so like then you'd be taking that away from me. So I think that's their argument, and I think everybody's entitled to it. So I think that's where the solution there is probably just opt in. But I'm happy to hear that you're cool with it because I am as well. I think it's a great idea. I think it worked well for Minecraft. They've had that for forever, and it seems like the only way you're going to take people who are tepidly trying mods. So I get a lot of first-time users of mods who've never used a mod at all, and they first try Sim Settlements because it's obviously the association with SimCity, and there have been a lot of people who have streamed it.
It's one of the most endorsed mods on the Nexus. Of course, they're going to see it. So yeah.
So a lot of them have tried it for the first time, and then that's kind of a gateway drug. Once you try one mod, then it's like, oh, what else can I do? So I've experienced a lot of the first timers, and they have so many questions about load order and stuff to the point that we now have like a whole educational series about modding on our forums to help people get started. And it's so much information you have to absorb to start playing around with mods seriously that it's like that is too much for most people.
I don't doubt it. Like the what's it called for Skyrim, the Step Project or something like that? Is that still a thing? I don't know. I remember looking at that. That's like one of the big mod tutorials for Skyrim. And I remember looking at that and being like, I don't even understand what the hell they're talking about. How is this supposed to be useful for other people? But that's great if you're doing proper mod proper intros to modding.
It's fun to see. It's fun to encourage people to do it because it's all, especially for people who can't afford to be buying new games all the time. Like modding is an amazing way to just get unlimited value out of a game. So those people, it's fantastic to help with. But just the